Welcome back to another video of leveling up with Docker. Now that the Docker is installed, let's try to run our first container. Well, technically this is our third container. In the last video, we have run JQ containers and probably Hello World as well. But those were just a quick demos. This time, we are actually going to dive a little bit deeper into container and its operation. So let's think of this as our first real container. Now for the start, where does Docker comes from? Where does the containers comes from? The common place is actually coming from Docker Hub. So you can actually go to the hub.docker.com. Right, so this is the place that I always go when I need to actually search for certain Dockers. So if I do search, I'll do things like nginx. Right, then they'll actually search and give you all the nginx related Dockers. Right. And most of the time, what I want to do is basically I'll definitely almost always click the Docker official image. Right. So these are the Dockers that is maintained by the actual creators of the software. So we want to use this as much as possible. If there is an official image, just use it. It is more likely to be more secured, up to date, and better maintained. If there is no official image, I usually look for those with a high download count. And now, of course, there are other registries as well. I actually have it listed here. Right, so one of the common one is basically a GitHub. So those are the ghcr.io. Generally, their format is always followed by the username, followed by the image name. And of course, Enterprise Linux also comes with your own registry. So these are the two that is quite common. The way we run it is still the same. We just need to put the registry name, then we put the image name. That's about all. Right. But for today, we are going to use Docker Hub. It's the most common one and is what you'll use at least 90% of the time, I guess. Okay, now notice that whenever we run our Docker here, we usually don't specify any text. Right? So when we do this, Docker will use the latest by default. And for this video, we are just going to use the latest. And that is definitely fine for learning, testing, and labs. But when you do start using production, you might want to pin it to a specific version, right? So instead of just put if you want to use nginx, instead of just put nginx, you probably want to do something like nginx 1.24 or whatsoever, right? This will actually helps to make your build tag to a certain version. It doesn't break when they just anyhow move to different version and your application is not tested against that version yet. Now, having said that, let's start. Right, let's remove this first. Right, okay, so what we are going to do is basically we are going to run nginx. So first thing that I'll do is docker run -d -rm -name. I'm going to name it nginx. Okay, now let's break down what each of these flag means. -d means it's going to detach. Once it's getting detached, it's basically running on the background, so it'll give the terminal back to me so that I can actually continue doing my work. Right now, -rm basically means that it's going to auto remove when the container stops. Right, it'll automatically get deleted, so your system will be clean. Right, the next is basically my favorite flags. Obviously, I like to actually name my containers, right, so that I can actually refer it later on easily. Right, when you don't do this, usually the Docker will just give it a random name. Right, so now let's go ahead and run this. Right, so once we do this, yeah, we'll get the nginx running. Now, usually if you haven't do it before, you'll get a message that is unable to find the image locally. Right, then you'll try to download from the Docker itself. Right, now that we have it, it's all done, it is running in the background, we don't see anything there. So how do we know that it is actually running? That is the next command. So we can run the docker ps. Right, docker ps will actually show you each containers that you run. Right, But there is another one that I like to use as well. I can actually do the docker ps -a, right? As you can see here, it'll actually list down those containers that is already that exit, right? So basically it's already stopped, but it's still there, right? You notice that previously we run our hello world and jq without name, so docker will just assign it with some random name, right? For ours, we actually use dt nginx, so it is named as such, right? So that is clean. Now the next part is basically we want to actually do something that is cooler, right? We can actually open a shell inside a running container. So what we do is we just do a docker exec -it the nginx. This is the container name that we name, right? Then we can call bin bash. Okay, of course we can only run bin bash if bin bash itself is inside nginx container. If it doesn't, then this will just fail. The common one that is available is bin sh as well, right? But by no means that all containers will have this. Only some containers will have this, right? I just know for sure that nginx have it because I ran it before, right? Now that we inside the containers, you'll see that it is logging in as root. So we are root account inside a container, but we are just sysadmin when we are out of container, right? Then you'll see that this is actually tagged with the container ID, right? Okay, now --it is required because the I will keep the standard input out open so that you can type the command. -t will assign it the terminal so that we get a proper prompt, right? So -it is what we are going to use most of the time, right? So now let's verify that our docker's nginx is actually running something, right? So what we can do is we can do a curl localhost, right? Yep, you can see that once it's contacted localhost, it's serving the HTML website, right? So let's exit this, right? Docker ps -a, you realize that it is still running, it's still up, so we are going to stop this. Next, oops, sorry, it's dt nginx, right? You see that after I stop it, it is automatically removed, right? Let's clean up this too as well. So if it is not removed, we can actually do docker rm -zen space and this. Yep, now we have all removed, right? So that's good. Yeah. Okay, now it's your turn. I actually prepared an exercise earlier. So in this exercise, what I want you to do is I want you to run a Redis container, right? It's called Redis container, right? And I want to name it as dt Redis. Redis itself is just some in-memory data store. So what it does is basically it keeps a key value pairs, right, as a database inside of a table and rows, right? So after that, I want you to open a shell. Don't use bin bash here. I want you to use Redis CLI because this will give you a Redis command line interface where you can actually do Redis command, right? Then I want you to set some key. You can name it anything. The first part is the key. The behind part is basically the value, right? Then you can actually get back the value. I get name here, then you'll get it back, right? After that is done, I want you to stop and remove the container and run it again with the same name, right? And we'll try to get a key again, right? So your data will still be there after restarting container. Think about it, right? So I'm going to stop for a while here, right? You might want to hit pause so that you can go through the exercise. I'll see you back when you are ready. Welcome back. I'll go through the exercise just to make sure that all of us are actually in sync. Right, let's come back here. I'm going to clear my screen first. Right, so the first task is basically we want to run Redis container, right? So let's do this. Docker run -d -- name dt Redis. Okay, I purposely don't put --rm because I want to clean up manually later on, right? So let's do this. It is running. Right, so let's do this. Docker exec minus it dt Redis, right, is Redis CLI. Right, make sure you're inside the Redis prompt. Inside here, we can always do the set name, I'm going to set age. I'm forever 18. Right, I can always get my name, get my age, right, and that's it. That's done. Right, so we can exit this now. I'm going to stop it. Docker stop dt Redis, or maybe I'll just remove it first to show you what happens. dt Redis. If I try to remove a running one, they'll tell you that it is still running, so you can't stop it. So we can do the docker stop dt Redis. It is still around, so we remove it. Yeah. Now let's rerun this again. We are going to use the same one. Docker run minus d name dt Redis. You try to run the CLI. Exec it dt Redis. I try to get my name. It is totally gone. So why is that? Well, that's because we don't use volume, right? The container itself is actually ephemeral. So what it means is it does not maintain any state. When the container is removed, the data is removed with it. Right, so let's continue here. I'm going to exit. Right, so we can do the docker stop dt Redis and docker rm dt Redis. And as usual, I'm going to verify that it is not running anymore. Right, so that's all for today. Right, so what we'll do in the next session is we'll try to cover volume. Right, so in this volume we'll try to make the state maintain. Right, so subscribe if you don't want to miss it. This stuff and all of it is actually from my book Leveling Up with Docker. If you find this helpful, the full course is on Amazon. The link will be in the description if you want to go deeper. Anyway, if this helped, hit like and remember subscribe. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I'll try to read every single one of them and I'll try to answer everything. Right. See you again next time. Bye bye.